Hey there, weary historian. Tonight's tale won't feature fortress sieges or royal executions. No, this evening brings something far less heroic, far more intimate, and infinitely more terrifying. You'll awaken with nosebleeds. Your joints will scream. You'll persuade yourself it's nothing serious, just seasonal. Chills perhaps, or foul air. But it isn't. It's smallpox. And in the coming days, your body will transform beyond recognition. Your home becomes a cell, and your face, should it endure, will never truly belong to you again. Before we plunge into delirium, desperate prayers, and the quietly festering logic of Renaissance medicine, grant me one small courtesy. Tell me where you're listening from and your local time. I cherish seeing how far this morbid little chronicle travels. For early access to more of these grim historical accounts, ad-free, episode audio, or to support the show, the Patreon link awaits in the description. Oh, and if you're listening in bed tonight, consider sleep mask. Headphones for full immersion. They're plush, light-blocking, and unlike 17th century remedies, they actually function. I've linked my preferred pair in the description. Now recline. Get comfortable. Let's commence. You rouse before the bells chime, not from eagerness, but because the cold steals sleep. The attic air hangs stagnant and rancid, thick with too many breaths in too cramped a space. The roof beams groan faintly above you. Condensation drips from rafters onto floorboards beside your straw pallet. No fire, naturally. You're unworthy of warmth. The embers died hours ago, and even had they survived, the wind hunts you regardless, slithering through thatch and chimney cracks like a thief. Specializing in frozen toes, you clutch the blanket tighter around your shoulders, though it's little more than patched linen and wishful thinking, and listen to the city stretch and moan outside. A cartwheel clatters over frozen ruts. A stray dog gags in some alley. And somewhere below, the tailor's apprentice, who is also you, struggles to recall the day. You sit up sluggishly. Your joints protest, but they always do in this season. The floor smacks your feet with stones. Indifferent slap, confirming you're still alive and still unfortunate. You dress in yesterday's clothes because they're today's clothes and likely tomorrow's too. You yank your threadbare tunic over bony knees and inspect your hands. They're parched, cracked with crimson fissures where skin split overnight. You flex your fingers. Knuckles shriek. Probably the damp, probably the cold, probably nothing worth fretting over, and certainly nothing you can afford to mend. Downstairs, the house stirs in its muted way. The housemaster's wife has coughed for weeks, hacking into her apron while stirring whatever gruel passes for sustenance. The baby wails intermittently, or doesn't. The difference hardly matters. The chimney exhales lazy smoke, spreading more soot than heat, and the reek of scorched barley and curdled milk climbs the stairwell. Someone opens the door for water and drags the morning inside with them. It smells of smoke, dung, and frost. An improvement. Outside, the streets a frozen mosaic of footprints, each a miniature crater of filth and icy sludge. You step gingerly to avoid the deepest patches, though it scarcely matters. Your boots have worn so thin they're practically sandals. People pass without speaking. Traders, beggars, bakers, and men with nothing to sell. Nothing to beg, no bread to bake. A laundress mutters something, crossing herself. Near a drainage ditch, you nod politely. She doesn't reciprocate. No one meets eyes. This early, or perhaps no one wants to see their reflection. At the workshop, routine takes over. Sweep scraps, mend seams, thread needles by guttering candlelight. The tailor hasn't arrived, but his presence lingers in how the air thickens near his chair. You work swiftly, silently as ever. Your hands betray you today, stiff, swollen, clumsy. You nick yourself twice hemming a sleeve. And don't bother wiping the blood. Let the thread stain crimson. Who'll notice? Half the city already walks like corpses. The other apprentice mentions the cold, how it seeps into marrow like debt collectors. You agree without looking up, too focused on steadying your needle. Though your skull throbs and your nose drips. A slow metallic trickle smeared with your sleeve. You blame the smoke, the damp, the wind's relentless probing through door cracks. But when you glance down, the fabric bears a telltale crimson smear, a nosebleed. You pinch your nostrils, tilt your head, mumbling about dry air. The other apprentice grunts and keeps sewing. You persist, but the candlelight stings worse than usual. You squint, blaming exhaustion. Maybe you slept poorly. Maybe it's the pre-dawn gloom. Or maybe it's nothing. Everything's always nothing until it becomes everything. Your shoulders scream by midday, your knees feeling like someone poured acid in the joints. Every motion drags a little heavier. Still, you don't stop. You can't. Stopping means the tailor notices. Noticing means a cuff to the ear. And a day without food. A customer enters, an older woman, with a wide bonnet and pinched lips, requesting new lining for her winter cloak. She smells of cloves and damp wool. You retreat when she eyes your hands. People are jumpy this season. Everyone blames frost, mists, comets, and the neighbor's dog. For every sniffle and cough, you've caught whispers of sickness near the docks. Something about boils, something about blood. The kind of stories that cling to tavern corners, like mildew, and grow louder as temperatures drop. Still, no one you know has fallen ill. Not yet. The church bells toll. The tailor announces, "A break, code for get out of my sight." You slip into the yard behind the shop, where pigeons peck at nothing, and the well's rim has frozen over. The cold punches your chest. You double over, coughing, spitting bile into dirt. No witnesses, no questions. You wipe your mouth, steady yourself against stone, and glare at the sky, pale and swollen with ominous clouds. You nibble green-tinged bread, some dried beans, and a worm-riddled turnip. It sits like lead in your gut. You wonder if that's the culprit, if spoiled food explains this malaise. Your fault, perhaps. You recall the nosebleed, the way your spine aches like it's forgotten, how to hold your skin upright, the unnatural warmth at your temples, despite the wind gnawing through your collar. By afternoon, the tailor sends you home. You look ghastly, he says. You don't argue. You gather your meager belongings and shuffle through alleys, past doorways, stuffed with rags, past shuttered windows, nailed shut against the wind. A one-eyed cat slinks past. A woman empties a steaming bucket into the gutter. You wonder if the laundress will nod tomorrow. You wonder if the tailor will let you return. You climb to the attic like an old man, each step more guesswork than motion. Your knees shriek now in new ways. Your skin feels taut, like parchment left too long. In the sun, when you reach your bed, you collapse onto it and stare at your hands. They tremble faintly, enough to make the candle flicker when you try to light it. You lie back without undressing, dragging the thin blanket over your chest, breathing in the stale reek of old straw and your own sour sweat. It's probably just a chill, probably the weather, probably too much time near the fire, or not enough. You close your eyes and tell yourself you'll feel better by morning. Your joints begin to throb. Not just ache, throb. Like something deep inside is pressing outward, trying to claw its way to the surface. You yank the blanket tighter and curl onto your side. The room tilts slightly, though nothing moves. Your skull feels hot and hollow, as if scooped out and refilled with warm cinders. You whisper a prayer without thinking, something half remembered from a sermon 2 winters back, when a traveler collapsed in the square and no one helped him up. You fall asleep like that, curled, sweating, whispering. The last thing you feel before darkness takes you is the unmistakable ache of something turning. Not improving, worsening. By morning, the sweat has dried, but the heat hasn't. You wake in the same twisted position, half curled, half shivering, and everything hurts. Your limbs feel twice their weight. Your skull pulses with each heartbeat, a slow, rhythmic hammering that vibrates through your teeth. The attic air hangs thick and motionless, sour with your own breath and the faint, bitter tang of fever. The candle's stub guttered out overnight, leaving a wax puddle on the floorboards. You sit up slowly and immediately regret it. The motion sends a wave of dizziness crashing through you. For a moment, you're certain you'll vomit or faint or both. You settle for folding forward, head between your knees, breathing into the sour fabric of your blanket, begging your stomach to behave. You know you're unwell. But you also know no work means no food. So you dress. Each layer weighs more than yesterday. The tunic clings to your damp skin. Your joints resist, elbows stiff, knees uncooperative, shoulders slumped not from fatigue, but from the sheer effort of existing. The walk to the workshop is short, but today it feels endless. The cold no longer bites. Your skin's gone numb in patches, oversensitive in others, as if your body can't decide whether it's freezing or burning. The mud sucks at your boots like it knows something you don't. When you arrive, you pretend nothing's wrong. You sweep. You set thread. You hunch over the table, pushing needles through fabric with trembling hands. The tailor glances at you once, just once, then says nothing for an hour. But you feel his gaze between your shoulder blades, hot as sunlight through stained glass. The other apprentice scoots farther down the bench. His stitches come faster, neater, as if productivity could inoculate him against you. By mid-morning, the whispers start. The tailor's wife comes to inspect something and freezes in the doorway. She doesn't enter, just stands there, arms crossed, lips pursed, as if tasting something foul in the air. When she leaves, the door stays ajar too long, airing you out. You hear her mutter to her husband about ill winds and tainted smoke. Not from your hearth, obviously. The neighbors, the smithies, the tanners. Always someone else's fault. Until it isn't. Later, the conversation shifts. No longer just weather and drafts. Someone, maybe the lace-buying churchwoman, mutters sin. Quietly, of course. A suggestion, not an accusation. But it hangs in the air like wet laundry. You hear it again at the market when you step out to vomit. A vendor presses a sprig of rosemary into your sleeve. Wards off rot, she says, avoiding your eyes. You thank her. She doesn't ask for payment. You return to the shop clutching the rosemary. It's wilted by the time you arrive. The tailor meets you at the door this time. He doesn't step back, but doesn't step forward either. He tells you to sit. You obey. He watches you, rubbing his hands as if they're filthy. Then he says not to come back tomorrow. Not unless you're better. There's been talk, he says. About the docks. About a boy in the next parish. He shrugs, but it's stiff. Just the season. Bad air. Or worse. His mouth twitches. He wants to say more. Doesn't. You nod. You understand. You do the same. The tailor's wife presses a pouch into your hands as you leave, herbs wrapped in linen. Rosemary, thyme, maybe lavender if they were feeling generous. Steep it in vinegar, she says. Boil it if you can. Breathe the steam. Pray. Her voice is flat, but her eyes linger on your face too long, memorizing it, or marking it. You thank her, though your voice rasps like it's fought through thorns to escape your throat. The street feels colder on the way back. Not the air. Your skin still burns beneath your clothes. But the way people step aside. Not dramatically, just that subtle shuffle of self-preservation. A man pulls his scarf over his mouth as you pass. You walk faster. Or try to. Your legs won't cooperate. The ache has settled into your bones, deep as rotten wood. At home, the attic smells like you, which is to say, like stale sweat, damp wool, and fear. You sit on your mattress, dump the herbs into a dented laundry pot, slosh in vinegar, cloudy, sharp, barely more than rainwater, and coax the brazier's last coals to life. The steam rises sluggishly, curling around your face in thin, medicinal tendrils. It smells like regret and boiled leaves. You inhale. You don't know if it helps. The headache has spread behind your eyes now, flaring with every blink. Your spine throbs in intervals. Your skin feels alien. Tight here, loose there, as if you've been sewn into your own body with the wrong thread. You drink metallic-tasting water. You attempt to eat, but the bread crumbles in your grip, and the smell alone makes your stomach lurch. You hurl it into the corner and collapse. Evening fades early, as winter evenings do. Bells hum in the distance. Horses clop past, carrying someone important somewhere warmer. You lie still, wrapped in blankets that stopped warming you days ago, listening to the city forget you one sound at a time. A knock downstairs. Voices too faint to decipher except the tail end. Just keep him inside for now. Then footsteps retreating. Your shutters are already closed. They've been closed for days. You stare at your hands. They're redder now. Or maybe it's the light. The skin at your knuckles is puffier than this morning. You flex your fingers and feel something catch beneath the surface, a splinter that hasn't emerged. You lie back. The pot steams beside you. You lack the strength to move it. Eventually, you sleep. Not deeply, not well, but in that shallow way the ill sleep. One foot in the waking world, the other dangling somewhere quieter. The fever hasn't broken. Not yet. But it's changing, refining itself, becoming deliberate. You feel it gathering in your joints, behind your eyes, in the hollow of your chest. You hope the rosemary works. But deep down, you already know you won't return to work tomorrow. You may not return at all. You wake with your tunic glued to your back, soaked through from shoulder to hip. The sweat has dried unevenly, leaving your skin tacky and sour. Your hair sticks to your face. Your mouth tastes like iron and ash. Your tongue feels too large for your mouth. Every muscle screams as if you've been beaten in your sleep. When you try to sit up, your head spins violently, and a wave of nausea nearly knocks you back onto the straw. You press your palms to the floor to steady yourself, but the wood feels unnaturally warm beneath your hands, like someone else's fever has seeped into the boards. The pot of vinegar and herbs still simmers nearby, but the scent no longer smells sharp. It smells rotten, like boiled meat gone bad. You try to stand, but your limbs refuse the order. Your knees throb as if the bones are trying to swell through the skin. Your spine cracks audibly when you straighten. You crawl to the window and unlatch it just enough to let in a draft of cold air. It helps, for a moment, but the instant you stop moving, the sweat returns. You feel it bead under your arms, down your neck, along the backs of your thighs. You aren't warm. You're burning. The blanket does nothing. The air does less. Something inside you is boiling, and there's no escape from your own skin. The barber surgeon comes later. You don't know how long it's been. Hours, maybe a day, maybe two. You hear voices downstairs, low, muffled, urgent, then slow, deliberate footsteps on the stairs. They creak one by one until a shadow fills the attic doorway. He's shorter than you imagined, hunched with age or labor or both. His apron is stained brown, red, black, green. His boots are caked with old filth. His breath reeks of onions and something medicinal. You recognize him. Everyone does. He's not a real physician. You couldn't afford one of those even if the city had any left. He's the barber surgeon, and he's brought his tools. He doesn't greet you, just grunts and kneels beside your mattress with the bored efficiency of someone who's treated too many patients who don't recover. His fingers prod your neck, your armpits, the hollows of your elbows. He frowns at your tongue's color, then lifts your shirt and presses his cold palm to your chest. You flinch, not from pain, but from realizing how hot your skin feels under his touch. He says little, just hum an ah, and then, fetch the basin. Someone else is there, a neighbor, maybe, or the housemaster's wife, though you doubt she'd stay. The basin arrives. He opens his case, more a wooden box with rusted hinges than a proper surgical kit, and assembles his answer to your illness. You try to sit up, but he shoves your shoulder down harder than necessary. Don't fuss, he says, and reaches for the blade. The first cut is shallow but cruel. A slice across your forearm. Not deep enough to kill, just enough to bleed. The basin fills slowly. He squeezes your arm like a wineskin, milking the blood out. You try not to look, but it's hard. The blood smells wrong, sharper than it should, like meat left in the sun. Your stomach lurches. You swallow it back. He moves to the other arm, then behind your knees. Each incision is small, precise, and pointless. He hums tunelessly as he works, as if bleeding you is no different than trimming hair or pulling teeth. When he's satisfied, he turns to the cups, glass and horn, some cracked, some stained. He heats them over the brazier with oil, then presses them to your back, your shoulders, your legs. The suction bites, pulling your skin up into painful domes. You grit your teeth, but your body betrays you, trembling with each new blister. The pain is sharp at first, then fades to a sickening throb that lingers long after the cups are gone. Blisters form instantly. That's the point, he says. The bad humors must be drawn out. He mumbles Latin, half prayer, half spell, entirely garbled. Next comes the mustard plaster. It burns worse than the cups. A thick yellow paste, hot from the fire, smeared across your chest and wrapped tight with linen. The sting is immediate and savage. Your skin feels flayed beneath the cloth. Your body's inner heat rises in response. Furious, confused. He dabs something on your temples. Sage oil, he claims, though it does nothing for the pounding in your skull. He offers a vial of mercury tincture for your throat. You shake your head. He shrugs. Suit yourself. Some say it clears the phlegm. Others choke on it. The final touch is an herbal compress. Dried chamomile and poppy heads soaked in vinegar, pressed to your forehead and ankles. A formality. Something done more for show than effect. He lays a square of rough wool over your chest and pins a prayer to it. A psalm fragment in shaky script, meant to guard your soul from further corruption. Not the illness, just the moral decay that might follow. He doesn't look you in the eye when he does it. His hands move automatically, as if preparing you for something he's already decided you won't survive. When he's finished, he rinses his hands with wine from a skin at his belt, rubbing them without looking. He wipes them dry on his apron hem and snaps the case shut without ceremony. He leaves instructions with whoever brought him. Burn the linens. Steep the herbs. Feed him if he'll eat. Watch for black spots. If they turn black, he says, you won't need me again. Then he's gone. His boots thud down the stairs. The door clicks shut. You lie there, unmoving. The room smells of mustard and metal, smoke and sweat. Your limbs are slick with blister fluid. Your bandages are already soaked through. The pressure in your skull hasn't eased. If anything, it's worse. Your pulse drums in your ears. The plaster itches maddeningly. You want to scream, but screaming would require breath you can't spare. You turn your face to the wall. The straw pokes through the mattress seams, scratching your cheek. You try to pray, but you've forgotten how. The words won't come. Or they come in the wrong order, like threads slipping from a hem. You're exhausted beyond reason, aching beyond recognition, and yet sleep won't take you. Your body has become a furnace of misery, and you're trapped inside it. No door, no window, no key. Eventually, you stop fighting the pain. You lie shivering under the coarse wool blanket, blistered and bandaged, a prayer pinned to your chest like a price tag. Not that anyone's calling you by name anymore. You're no longer a person. You're a case, a risk, a chore. Tomorrow, you'll either wake or you won't. The light through the attic slats is different this morning. Pale, watery, hesitant. You try to lift your head to greet it, but even that small effort sends a jagged pain slicing from your neck down your spine. You blink against the dampness crusting your lashes and feel them stick together. Your skin hurts, not like bruises or burns, but as if something new and terrible has begun growing beneath it. You shift slightly and feel a dragging resistance, like your blanket has fused to your flesh. You tug your collar down. That's when you see them. At first, just a few tiny red bumps dotted across your chest like insect bites, but harder, angrier, already swelling at the edges. You pull your tunic open further and find more on your arms, your ribs, the tops of your thighs. Some are still flat and flushed. Others are beginning to rise, the skin around them tight and glossy, stretched thin over something that shouldn't be there. You touch one gently. It stings, then pulses. You jerk your hand back. Your heart races, not from fear, not yet, but from a disoriented confusion. You don't remember falling asleep. You don't remember anything after the barber surgeon left except a blur of voices and heat, and something heavy pressing on your chest. You lie back and exhale slowly, but even that hurts. Your breath feels thick, like you're inhaling through wet cloth. The room smells strange now, not just vinegar and herbs, but something sweet underneath. Faint, rotting. Downstairs, the house creaks and murmurs as usual. Water pours. A spoon scrapes a pot. Someone coughs. Footsteps pause at the stair's base and don't ascend. A hesitation. Then the sound of the door being barred from the inside. You try not to imagine what they're thinking down there. If they're thinking of you at all. You wonder if the housemaster's wife has told the neighbors yet. You wonder if they already knew. The pustules spread quickly. By midday, they've reached your neck and scalp, nesting in your hairline, swelling along your temples. You feel them forming under your arms, behind your knees, between your fingers. Some pulse with heat. Others itch so viciously you bite your cheek to keep from clawing at yourself. You try to stay still, to sweat it out, to wait, but nothing passes. Everything accumulates. Every hour brings more blisters, more pain, more heat. You piss in a bucket. It smells wrong, sharp, sour, metallic. Your sweat is worse. The blanket beneath you is soaked. The straw underneath has begun to rot. You can smell it now, a clinging, sickly sweet reek that hangs in the air. Even with the window cracked open, it clings to the beams, your clothes, your hair. It's the smell of fermentation, of meat turning. You press your hand to your chest and feel the pustules quiver under the pressure. One has already begun to weep, a slow, sticky ooze that stains your linen and crusts as it dries. Someone comes upstairs in the afternoon, but they don't enter. You hear the top step creak, the hesitation, then a pot clinking against the floor. They've left something outside the door. You force yourself upright, each movement a quiet agony, and crawl to the threshold. A bowl of weak broth, already cooling, and a smaller bowl of water. You drink greedily, spill some, then nearly retch when the liquid hits your stomach. You keep it down, barely. There's no note, no voice calling after you. Just the soft retreat of footsteps, one slow tread at a time. By evening, the fever returns, not as a spike, but as a dull, relentless weight settling behind your eyes and in the pit of your spine. You feel bloated and brittle, like something overfilled and distended. The pustules grow larger. Some merge at the edges, clustering in angry colonies. The skin between them turns red, then purplish. You sweat without relief. You itch without end. And all the while, you're increasingly aware of your own stench, your own decay. It becomes hard to tell where the illness ends and you begin. That night, you don't sleep so much as fade. You drift in and out, floating on waves of heat and discomfort. You dream of needles, of ants tunneling through your veins, of being covered in bees that sting and never stop. You wake repeatedly, gasping, tangled in your own limbs, unsure if the sounds in the attic are rats or footsteps or the settling of your own bones. When you scratch your scalp, your fingernails come away wet. You don't look too closely. In the early hours, you hear voices through the floorboards, low, urgent, fearful. Someone says your name, then drops their voice. You hear a fire being stoked. Minutes later, a strange smell wafts upstairs, sharper than vinegar, harsher than herbs. Something acrid. You drag yourself to the window and peer down. Smoke curls from a pile of smoldering straw in the yard. You're betting. They're burning the straw from your old mattress, the one you used before you got too sick to move. You wonder if they'll do the same with you. By morning, your face has begun to change. The pustules have climbed your jaw, spread across your cheeks, settled into the hollows beneath your eyes. They distort your expression. They pull at your skin. They make it hard to speak or smile or frown. Not that there's reason to smile. When you blink, your eyelids drag across pustules. When you speak, your tongue scrapes against sores forming inside your cheeks. You keep water near you now just to dampen the pain. It helps, briefly. You try distracting yourself by counting the pustules, first on one arm, then the other, then across your chest. You stop around 60, not because you run out, but because your vision blurs and blinking becomes too painful. Your eyes are hot, raw, gummy with dried fluid. Light hurts. Sound hurts. Existing hurts. And still, they spread. You lose track of the days almost completely now. The world narrows to a stinking, feverish radius of your own body. Time is no longer measured in hours or prayers or sunlight through the slats, but in pulses of pain and waves of nausea. The pustules swell. No longer small red seeds, but full yellowed blisters, soft and hot and raw. They bulge like overripe fruit packed too tightly under your skin, threatening to split with every movement. Some do. You wake to find your sleeve stuck to your forearm with crusted fluid, the linen stained a sickly amber. You peel it back slowly, and the skin comes with it. The stench grows worse with each hour. Not just the sour tang of sweat or vinegar-soaked compresses left too long against fevered flesh. No, this is something deeper, a a rancid, meaty sweetness that clings to the back of your throat and fills your mouth even when you aren't breathing through your nose. It's the smell of decay. Slow, personal, as if your body has begun rotting from the outside in. You try to keep the window cracked, but even the breeze hesitates before entering. You lie in it, swaddled in layers you can no longer remove, stewing in yourself. The pustules claim every inch of you now. They crawl across your neck and cluster at your collarbone. They nestle into the soft tissue of your armpits and the crease of your groin. You discover one on the inside of your lip, pressing against your teeth with a maddening insistence. Others spread across the soles of your feet, turning each twitch of your toes into an exercise in restraint. Your eyelids swell, heavy and sticky, each blink a deliberate effort. At one point, you think you've gone blind, until you realize your eyes are simply glued shut with pus. You rub them frantically, feeling the crust break apart under your fingers. The itching is unbearable now, not like an insect bite or a healing wound. This is deeper, more primal, as if the nerves beneath your skin are trying to claw their way to the surface. Your hands tremble with the effort not to scratch, but the urge is overwhelming. You ball your fists. You clench your jaw until your teeth ache. You try prayer, breath holding, biting down on your blanket, but nothing helps. The need burrows beneath your skin like something alive. You want to tear the pustules off one by one, just to silence the screaming nerves beneath them. Water becomes a rare luxury. Your ration now, a single bowl left at the top of the stairs, refilled once a day maybe. Sometimes not. No one enters your room anymore. You hear footsteps pause near the door, the quiet clink of the bowl being set down, then nothing. No greetings, no questions, no replies. When you cry out, your voice is hoarse and pathetic. The silence that answers is more final than any refusal. No one wants to see what you look like now. No one wants to touch you. You suspect they've already written you off. You imagine them downstairs, whispering over their soup, locking the cupboards, deciding what to do with your things. You had so few things. A wooden comb, a spare pair of socks, a half-used spool of thread. The sort of possessions that don't get inherited, just absorbed. You wonder if the tailor has already replaced you. You wonder if your name still passes anyone's lips, or if it's been filed away under risk or pity or not worth the trouble. Once a priest comes, you hear him before you see him. The slow tread of boots on the stairs, the creak of the banister, the whisper of robes. You lift your head with what little strength remains and wait for him to enter. He doesn't. The footsteps stop outside your door. You hear breathing, then a few murmured words in Latin, too quick to follow. He sets something down, a vial of holy water, maybe, or a charm. Then he's gone. You drag yourself to the door later and find a glass vial nestled beside the threshold, sealed with wax and marked with a faded cross. You stare at it a long time before dragging it inside. You don't open it. You just keep it near your mattress like a kind of company. Your dreams turn feverish, soaked in color and pain. You see your own face in a mirror, covered in pustules that pulse in time with your heartbeat. You dream of ants chewing through your skin, of rats nesting in your chest cavity. Sometimes the dreams are calmer, half-true memories. The tailor handing you a spool, your mother's voice, the smell of fresh bread. But these fade quickly and leave you emptier than before. Most nights, you don't dream at all. You simply drift in and out of burning silence. At one point, you begin to hallucinate. You think someone has entered the room. You hear a voice calling your name. Soft, familiar, maybe the housemaster's wife. You open your eyes, barely, and see a figure crouching near your feet, watching. But when you blink again, they're gone. Another time, you're certain a rat has crawled into your blanket, burrowing beneath your ribs. You thrash wildly, panting, clawing at your own side until your fingers find only damp linen and bone. You lose the ability to sit up for more than a few seconds. The muscles in your back seize when you try. The sores on your hips scream with every shift of pressure. You remain curled on your side most of the day, legs drawn up, hands limp near your chest. You forget what the sky looks like. You forget what your voice sounds like. You forget how to measure time. And still, the itching continues. Eventually, you give in. Not all at once. Just a small scratch, just to take the edge off. You rub your forearm against the blanket. It helps a little. You do it again. You scratch at your thigh through the cloth. The relief is immediate, dangerous, exquisite. You press harder, dig deeper. You feel one of the pustules rupture under your nails, a sickening pop followed by a warm trickle down your leg. You lie back, breathing hard, shivering, grateful for a moment's silence in the screaming beneath your skin. That night, in your sleep, you scratch without meaning to. Your fingers find your neck. Your nails dig deep. You wake to blood on your hands. Your chest heaves. The air feels thick and sour. You blink hard against the burning in your eyes, but they won't open fully. The fluid has dried across your lashes. You cough, the sound wet, bubbling. You try to call for help, but the word catches somewhere behind your tongue. You're alone, utterly alone, and now you're bleeding. Every joint has stiffened into a locked, fiery knot. Your mouth is parched. Your lips split at the corners. Your eyes feel glued shut. You manage to pry them open just enough to see the outline of the room in gray smudges. The first thing you do is reach for the water bowl, but it's empty. The second thing you do is try to crawl to the door. You don't make it far. Your body has turned against you completely. There's no strength left in your legs. You drag yourself forward with your elbows, gasping between movements, the wooden floor scraping your ribs and knees. You're halfway to the stairs before you notice the bar across the top of the door. It isn't subtle. A thick wooden beam wedged tightly into place, resting in grooves you didn't know were carved there. You reach up and press your hand to it, just to be sure it's real. It doesn't move. You're locked in. The panic doesn't come right away. It seeps in slowly, like everything else lately. You lie there for a while, one arm outstretched toward the door, breathing in the stale, fever-sweet air of your prison. You think briefly of the firewood downstairs. You think of your name. You wonder if anyone has said it aloud in the last few days. You wonder if the person who barred the door whispered it under their breath as they did so. Probably not. Probably they just muttered a psalm and hoped you wouldn't last long. When the bowl is next replenished, it's done through a cloth. You hear someone approach. Soft steps, slow, then the faint rustle of fabric. A hand pushes something through the gap beneath the door, a parcel wrapped in linen, damp at the corners, slightly warm. You crawl toward it and find a lump of barley mash, barely salted, and a second bowl of water. No voice, no knock, just a bundle passed through the lintel like contraband. You eat with your fingers, slowly, ignoring the grit and the smell and the way the mash sticks to your swollen tongue. You drink the water in one long pull and lick the bowl after. No more comes. Later that day, or maybe the next, you hear someone on the stairs again. Not the usual steps. These are heavier, deliberate. You catch a whiff of something bitter, resinous, the apothecary or someone working on his behalf. They don't knock. They leave a clay pot and a scrap of parchment near the door and leave without speaking. You pull the parcel in with a piece of cloth tied around your wrist. Inside the pot is something thick and dark, smelling faintly of licorice and decay. A purgative, probably. You recognize the scent of senna. You drink it. It burns all the way down. You don't even question it anymore. Your body is no longer your own. It is something to be managed, contained, emptied. The parchment bears a short note in an untidy, half-legible hand. It lists dosages you can't read clearly and ends with a line that simply says, "For the humors." No signature, no comfort. You notice the pot is reused. Bits of wax still cling to the rim from its last occupant. You wonder if they lived. You wonder if you'll return it or be buried with it. The leeches arrive the next day, or what you assume is the next day. A small wooden bowl covered with cloth, set just outside the door. When you lift the fabric, they writhe inside, slick and mindless. You hate them, but you use them. You press one to your calf, another to your forearm, watching as they latch on and swell with your blood. It doesn't hurt as much as you expect. Nothing does anymore. The pain has settled into the walls of your body, so complete that new injuries register as background noise. The blood drips freely when you pull the leeches off. You catch some of it on a bit of cloth and wipe it across your chest, just to feel something wet. You suspect someone is watching you. You feel it. Not always, not constantly, but in waves. A prickle at the back of your neck. The sense of eyes peering through a crack. There's a small window on the far side of the attic, mostly for ventilation, barely wide enough for a rat. Sometimes you think you see a shadow shift behind it. You don't move when you sense it. You don't call out. You just close your eyes and let the watcher have their glimpse. Let them see what they're afraid to admit. That you're still here, still alive, still oozing. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you begin to suspect they've done more than bar the door. You test the latch again one morning and find it secured with new iron. The hinges have been reinforced. You test the floorboards near the window. They're weak, splintering. Maybe they'd give way if you put your weight on them. But what then? Who would take you in? Who would even open their door? You imagine bursting into the alley behind the house, naked and screaming, pustules weeping, nails blackened. You picture the crowd parting like a sea. You picture torches. You decide to stay put. You don't know how long it's been since anyone brought you food. You don't remember your last drink of water. You lie curled beneath your blanket, mouth open, eyes too swollen to close, and you hear them. Footsteps, bells, cloth rustling, dozens of voices humming a single low note. You lift your head and see them at the foot of your bed. Robed figures crowned with candles, hands folded in prayer. Some weep, others smile. One raises a hand and points to your chest. You try to speak, but your mouth fills with dust. You try to sit up, but your bones are molten. You close your eyes. You don't open them again for a long, long time. You wake to wet sheets again, but this time, the moisture isn't just sweat. Your body has begun to leak in places it shouldn't. Fluid seeps from ruptured pustules along your spine, across your ribs, down the insides of your arms. It soaks through the linen beneath you and pools in the folds of the blanket. Your lips are cracked open, not chapped, but split. Raw fissures that sting with every breath. You try to lick them, but your tongue is swollen, thick and uncooperative, pressed clumsily against the roof of your mouth like a wad of cloth. Speaking is no longer an option. Even moaning feels too ambitious. You drift in and out for what might be hours. The light outside your window changes, softens, fades. The fever has taken over completely now, and your body is no longer a container for consciousness so much as a battleground. Every nerve is engaged in some private revolt. The pain has changed. No longer sharp or searing, but deep, submerged, like heat trapped in old stone. Your limbs twitch without your permission. Your muscles seize and release at odd intervals. You try to scratch, but your fingers won't close properly. Your nails are turning purple, bruised beneath the surface. When you press them lightly, they lift from the skin. At some point, you vomit. It's not food. There's been none of that, but a bitter, greenish fluid that burns your throat and floods your nose. You choke, roll to the side, and retch again until nothing's left but air. The taste lingers, foul and metallic, and you feel the pressure it leaves behind in your sinuses and temples. You wipe your mouth on the edge of your sleeve, already stiff with older stains. The effort leaves you dizzy. You collapse again and let your head fall against the pillow with a hollow thump. The pustules have begun to blacken. Not all of them, not yet, but enough to change the tone of your suffering. The ones on your chest and arms have turned dark at their centers, the yellow gone, replaced with a dusky purple that seems to radiate inward. The smell has changed too, less sweet now, more sour, with an edge of something fungal. When you shift, the blisters split and ooze. You feel the liquid creeping down your sides, sticky and warm. You've stopped reacting. There's no energy left for revulsion. You try not to breathe too deeply. The act itself has become hazardous. Your ribs ache with each expansion. Your lungs seem to protest every intake. The air in the room is thick and still, made heavier by the heat of your own body. You smell only yourself. Your blood, your skin, your rot. You pull the blanket up despite the stench, curl inward, and try to draw air in shallow gasps. Each breath is a negotiation. Voices come through the wall. You can't tell if they're real. A soft wail, perhaps a child. A woman speaking in low tones. At one point, a sob, then silence. The sound of wood being hammered. A prayer half sung, then a door closing with finality. You think the neighbor has died. The one with the 3 children and the red apron. Or maybe it was the child, Or maybe you imagined it. There are no names anymore, only impressions. The next time you hear footsteps below, you imagine someone lifting a body. You hear cloth being folded, or maybe just the wind in the shutters. You close your eyes and try not to picture it. Your thoughts have become fluid, drifting between memory and invention. You remember the sound of your father's voice, though he's been gone for years. You picture the tailor frowning over a crooked hem. You hear your own name called in the street. Then the visions come, slow at first, like reflections in water. You see fire licking at the beams above your bed. You feel the mattress fall away beneath you, replaced with cold river water. You're drowning, but you're also floating. The saints arrive next. Some smile, some cry. One carries a candle that drips wax across your chest, each drop a burn that doesn't fade. You reach out to them. Your arm moves, but you don't feel it. You've become unmoored from your own body, floating somewhere between self and shadow. Your face, if you still have one, no longer registers in your mind. You try to summon a prayer, but can't remember the words. Your mouth moves anyway. It shapes syllables that feel ancient and broken, scraped from the underside of language itself. You don't hear them, only the low hum of your own blood. The dreams come faster now, disjointed, hallucinatory. You see your bed on fire, but you feel no heat. You're standing at the foot of your own corpse, watching the pustules harden and split like cracked pottery. You hear laughter, your mother's, maybe, or the apprentice's from the shop. Then a silence so total it thunders. You blink, and you're back in the room, staring at the ceiling through half-lidded eyes, unsure of how long you've been there. You try to count the beams and the rafters. You lose track after 3. You begin again. You forget what 3 is. You forget what you were trying to do. Your brain no longer offers you a consistent timeline. Everything loops. You think of bread, then rats, then the girl who sold rosemary at the market. You think of her face, but it has your face. You close your eyes. The lids feel like stones. You forget why you closed them. You lose your sense of time entirely. You no longer know whether it is night or day. The light from the window is indifferent. You see brightness, then shadow, then brightness again. Or maybe the clouds just pass by slowly. The fever is absolute. You're no longer burning. You've become the burn. The distinction between hot and cold no longer exists. Only motion and stillness. Only the endless weight of being. You forget what day it is. You forget your name. You forget you're alive. You're not sure if this is the night you die. It might be. It feels like it should be. Your body has become an echo of itself. Soft, slow, weightless. You can no longer lift your head. Your limbs are where they've fallen, twisted under the blanket or splayed across the slick mattress like discarded tools. You barely notice the pain anymore. Not because it's gone, but because it's become too large to hold. It's drifted beyond the edges of your skin, somewhere into the walls, into the rafters. The ache is now just part of the room. You're aware of your breath, but only barely. It's shallow and irregular. Not quite enough to satisfy, but too much to stop. Each inhale catches on something sharp, deep in your chest, as though your lungs have begun to stiffen. The air whistles faintly through your nose when it comes at all. You focus on it, not because you want to, but because there's nothing else left to focus on. It's a task now, the only one you can manage. Inhale, hold, exhale, wait, inhale again. Your heart is slower than you remember. It used to drum constantly, especially during the fevers. Fast, loud, insistent, but now it's a murmur, a reluctant thud that seems to pause between beats. You can feel the gap growing, a space, a silence, a hesitation. It beats, then doesn't, then decides to continue, as though unsure whether it should bother. You lie completely still, waiting for it to stop. You aren't frightened, not exactly, just curious. There's a moment, brief, unremarkable, terrifying, when it feels like everything simply halts. Your heart, your breath, your thoughts. The attic grows still in a way it never has before, not even in the earliest hours of morning. The wind holds its breath outside. The floor doesn't creak. No fire crackles from below. It's not quiet. It's empty. The kind of stillness you associate with graveyards, with ruins, with abandoned places where nothing stirs because nothing remains. You exist inside that moment, suspended, nameless. Then, slowly, something shifts. A twitch in your eyelid. A sudden gasp that jerks your chest upward. The return of heartbeat, clumsy and uneven, hammering against your ribs like it's just remembered what it's for. You suck in a breath, and it burns. But it comes. Your eyes flutter open, and the ceiling greets you again with its familiar water-stained beams and slow-drifting dust. You're still here. Somehow. You wish you understood why. Time doesn't resume with clarity. There's no sudden lucidity. No angelic voice whispering that you've been spared. You don't feel stronger. You don't feel anything. You lie in the same pool of dampened filth you've been stewing in for days. And you stare at the same corner of the ceiling you've memorized from 100 different angles. Nothing is better. Nothing is worse. You are simply not dead. There is no relief. No weeping. No whispered thank you. Just a long, slow blink, and the realization that the fever, while still present, has dulled. The heat in your cheeks no longer radiates like a furnace. The throbbing behind your eyes has receded into a dull, distant pressure. You can move your fingers now, just a little. Enough to scratch your chest and feel the tacky drag of dried pus beneath your nails. Your legs still won't respond properly, but your toes twitch when you focus. You mark it as progress. You listen for voices, for footsteps, for anything beyond your own weak breathing. Nothing comes. The silence continues, indifferent. You try to remember the last time someone came up the stairs, the last time the bowl was filled, the last time someone knocked, even gently. You can't. Maybe they think you've already died. Maybe they're waiting until the smell is strong enough to risk opening the door. Maybe they've simply decided not to know. You can't blame them. Your mouth is a battlefield. The inside of your cheeks are torn, ulcerated. Your tongue still feels too large, but the swelling is less grotesque now. You flex your jaw. It creaks like old wood. You try to swallow and immediately gag on the dryness. Your throat is cracked and scabbed, but the movement doesn't send lightning through your skull the way it did before. Another kind of progress. You pull your hand across your stomach. It takes effort. Your skin is waxy, cold to the touch. The pustules have crusted over in most places. Some have ruptured in your sleep, flattened into weeping scabs that itch horribly. You want to scratch them all open, dig your nails into the old wounds just to feel something. But you don't. Not because you're strong, because you're too tired. Outside, the world must be moving. Somewhere, a bell is ringing. Somewhere, a child is crying. Somewhere, bread is being broken and firewood stacked and shoes repaired and horses watered. But none of that belongs to you now. You're outside of it, a body in a box, waiting for a decision to be made. You have become an object, a question, an inconvenience sealed behind a barred door. If you had died, it would have been quiet. There would have been no rites, no procession. The priest might have visited the threshold again, waved some smoke through the crack, said a few words with his back turned. The housemaster would have told the neighbors. A cart would have arrived eventually, with two men wearing cloths over their faces. You would have been carried down, wrapped in your own blanket, and buried in a pit with the others. A quick prayer, a thrown handful of dirt, then back to supper. But you didn't die, which is, in some ways, worse. No one celebrates a survival like this. You are not a miracle. You are a warning, a curiosity, a ruined thing that didn't quite collapse. If they let you out tomorrow, they won't greet you with hugs. They'll hand you a basin and ask you to wash somewhere else. They'll stare at your face and flinch without meaning to. They'll pretend it's nothing, that you're still you, but you won't be. The fever breaks not with a scream or a sigh or a flash of clarity. It breaks like a thread fraying in the rain, slowly, in silence, with no clear beginning and no satisfying end. You lie there blinking slowly, heart thudding faintly in your chest, and realize that the worst of it has passed. Not because you feel healed, but because you feel hollow. The violence is over. What remains is the aftermath. You remain in the wet silence of a broken body. Morning comes without announcement. No birdsong, no voices, no church bells. Just a gradual change in the color of the light seeping through the warped slats of the attic window. You blink against it and feel your eyelids stick together briefly, then release. A dull ache lives behind your eyes now. Nothing like the crushing pressure of the fever. just a steady throb, as if your body is reminding you that pain will be the price of waking. You turn your head and feel the stiffness in your neck crack like cold bread. Everything resists movement. Everything feels rusted through. You are not dead, but you're not alive in the same way. The worst is over. At least you think it is. You're no longer soaked with fever or haunted by endless hallucinations. You remember where you are? You remember, faintly, who you are. Your name returns in pieces. Your fingers, when you lift them, still tremble, but they respond. Your breath doesn't rattle anymore. Your heart has settled into something approaching rhythm. These are the signs you're supposed to look for. These are the moments when people say, he's turning the corner. You would laugh if your chest didn't still ache from the effort of breathing. The room is ruined. The blanket is stiff with old blood and worse. The mattress is collapsing under you, soaked through in patches. The straw beneath is blackened and curling at the edges. The smell has changed again. Not the sharp, clawing sweetness of rot, but something flatter, damp, sour, tired, like a cellar that's never quite dry. You can smell yourself beneath it all. Old sweat, pus, skin that's begun to slough off in flakes. You run your hand across your ribs and feel it, your own body coming away under your fingers like a coat shedding in spring. You've lost weight. That much is obvious. Your limbs are thin, but not graceful. They look half-used. Your thighs have wasted down to bone and bruises. Your belly is sunken. Your cheeks hollow. The outline of your collarbones protrudes beneath the crusted fabric of your shirt. You look like someone who's been buried and clawed their way back up. You shift the blanket aside and discover a new problem. The wounds left behind, the pustules, have dried mostly. The scabs are dark and hard, clinging stubbornly to the craters beneath. Some have fallen off already. You don't remember when. You find flakes of skin stuck to the wall beside you and decide not to think about it. You reach for the water bowl. Someone has refilled it. You didn't hear them come. It's still only halfway full, but the effort of dragging it to your lips is monumental. Your fingers fumble with the rim. You spill some on your chest, but you manage a few gulps before coughing. It tastes like wood and dust and mercy. You lower it slowly, grateful for the weight of it in your hands. Someone still remembers you, or at least still finds you worth keeping alive. Food comes again later, wrapped in cloth and pushed silently through the door. The same as before. Mash. More water. You crawl toward it slowly, every movement deliberate and painful, like testing a ladder rung by rung. Your muscles protest. Your joints scream. But you make it. You eat half and save the rest, though it's already cold and gray. Your stomach growls at the taste of it, confused by the sudden offering. You ignore it. Hunger can wait. You have to see. It takes most of the afternoon to cross the attic. You do it in segments. First to the foot of the mattress, then to the window, then to the corner with the water pot. Your arms do most of the work, pulling you forward while your legs drag behind, numb and heavy. You wonder if you'll walk again, if your muscles remember how. You laugh once, quietly, and it sounds like a cough. When you reach the basin, you pause to catch your breath. Then you look down. The reflection stares back at you, unrecognizable. Your face is pocked and cratered, covered in blotches of red and brown. The pustules that once swelled beneath your skin have left their signature, uneven scars stretching from chin to forehead. Some still scabbed, others pink and raw. Your left eye is bloodshot and swollen, the lid half closed and uncooperative. You blink and find that the vision on that side is blurred, cloudy. Maybe from damage. Maybe it will pass. Maybe not. Your right eye seems intact, though it waters constantly, as if still mourning what it sees. You touch your cheek with trembling fingers and flinch at the sensation. The skin is leathery in some places, peeling in others. The edges of the worst scars feel raised. Permanent. You look older, not just thinner or weaker, but aged, weathered, as if the sickness carved time into your bones. Your lips are cracked, your teeth stained. You part them slowly and find they ache, as if you've been grinding them in your sleep for days. You probably have. You lean back against the wall, exhausted by the act of seeing. You close your eyes and press your palms against your knees, breathing slowly. The air moves in and out, shallow but steady. That's the best you can do for now. Survival has become mechanical. You eat, you drink, you breathe, but you're no longer recovering towards something. You're recovering from something. And whatever that something was, it's left you gutted. The door creaks open sometime before dusk. You hear it clearly this time. The bar being lifted, the hinges whining. A face peers in. It's the housemaster's wife. She doesn't enter. She keeps the door half closed between you, her body angled for escape. A cloth masks her mouth and nose, tied tight behind her head. Her eyes are wide and darting, like she expects you to lunge at her. You don't. You just sit there, hunched against the wall like a discarded coat. She says nothing, just nods once, places a clean cloth and a bowl inside the threshold, and backs away. The door closes. The bar returns. You hear her footsteps retreat, quick and light, down the stairs. You pull the bowl closer and see what's inside. A piece of linen soaked in something that smells like lavender and rosemary. Clean but bitter. A weak attempt at comfort. You press it to your face anyway. It stings, but you keep going, wiping the grime from your cheeks, your jaw, your brow. You avoid your reflection in the water's surface. Once was enough. You don't weep. You don't have the strength for it. You just breathe, one breath at a time. You're still here, and you're not ready to see what that means. The first time you leave the attic, the light blinds you. It's brighter than you remembered, sharper somehow, as if the world has been scrubbed clean in your absence. You stand in the doorway with one hand against the frame, the other shielding your eyes, blinking slowly at a street that no longer feels like it belongs to you. The air hits your skin like cold water. You shiver, not from illness, but from exposure. You're not dressed for company. Just a loose tunic that hangs from your bony shoulders and a wool shawl that smells faintly of herbs and vinegar. But you're standing, and you're outside. You tell yourself that counts as a victory. The street quiets when you step forward. No one says anything at first. They just stop. A baker's apprentice balancing a basket pauses mid-step. A man sweeping the stoop lowers his broom. Two women hanging linens freeze with clothespins in their mouths. You feel it. The weight of their eyes not on your body, but on your face. You keep walking, slowly. Your legs are weak, and the ground tilts unpredictably beneath your feet. But you move with the quiet stubbornness of someone who has earned the right to be here. You try not to look directly at anyone, but you see enough in your periphery. A mother pulls her child closer and crosses to the other side of the lane. The baker's apprentice turns away, pretending to adjust his basket straps. One of the washerwomen crosses herself. No one speaks to you. No one nods. No one smiles. You pass a shuttered window and catch a flash of your own reflection. It's worse than you remember. The sunlight exposes everything. Every crater, every scab, every red vein blotch that's taken up permanent residence along your jaw. Your left eye is still watery and unfocused. You can't tell if it's healing or if this is simply the new reality. You reach up and touch your temple, but the skin there is numb. The nerves don't seem interested in reconnecting. You make it to the corner before you need to rest. There's a bench beneath a sagging awning where the cobbler used to sit and mend shoes. It's empty now. You lower yourself onto it slowly, your knees protesting. You breathe deeply and try to steady your heartbeat. You feel sweat forming along your spine despite the cold. You're not sure if it's from effort or embarrassment. Possibly both. A man walks past and nods politely. Then, as he catches a proper look at you, his face shifts. The nod becomes hesitation. The line of his mouth pulls tight. He keeps walking, but faster now. He doesn't look back. You sit very still and stare at the ground. It's not just that you're sick. It's that you are marked by something people still don't fully understand. Everyone knows the word smallpox, but no one agrees on what it means. Bad air, perhaps. Divine punishment. Moral failing. Poor humors. An imbalance caused by sin or by stars or by proximity to someone else with a cursed soul. No one says it outright, but it's in the eyes. The silence. The way people now lean away from you when you pass. Eventually, you push yourself to standing and begin the slow walk to the tailor's workshop. It feels strange to return to a place that once held routine and now holds uncertainty. You half expect to find it gone, replaced by something newer, something cleaner, something that never knew your name. But it's still there. Same crooked sign. Same uneven step at the door. You pause before entering, just long enough to consider whether this is a mistake. Inside, the air smells of dust and linen. The tailor is bent over the work table, his hands moving in the careful rhythm of habit. He doesn't look up right away. The other apprentice, your replacement, it seems, watches you from the corner. Young, broad-shouldered, unblemished. You feel suddenly very old. When the tailor does raise his eyes, his reaction is immediate but measured. A blink, a pause, then the faintest step backward. He wipes his hands on his apron and nods toward the bench by the wall, the one where you used to sit. "Didn't expect to see you," he says flatly. Not unkind, but not warm either. You nod. Your voice is still unreliable, so you don't try to speak. He studies your face for a long time. Too long. You see him cataloging every scar, every sunken contour, every question he doesn't want to ask. He clears his throat. "You look better than I heard." The lie is polite. You pretend to believe it. You glance at the fabric laid out on the table. Fine wool, blue-dyed, half-hemmed. You want to reach for it, to show that your hands still remember what they're meant to do. But the tailor is already speaking again. "It's not personal," he says, "and you know exactly what's coming. It's the customers. They worry. You understand." You nod again. "I can't have people asking questions. Not when they see." He trails off, gestures vaguely toward your face. "It's not right, but it's how it is. You understand. Of course you do. You survived a sickness that kills half the people it touches. You survived alone in a dark room, rotting from the inside out with nothing but a prayer and a bowl of stale water. You came back with your breath, your limbs, your memory, but you did not come back clean. And now cleanliness is currency." He says you're welcome to rest, but not to stay. He suggests visiting the almshouse or the church, somewhere out of sight, somewhere with fewer clients. You thank him, though your voice barely rises above a whisper. He doesn't offer a coin. He doesn't ask how you managed. You don't tell him. When you leave, the bell above the door rattles behind you, a sound you once associated with work and now with quiet dismissal. You step back into the street and feel the cold settle into your skin again. It nestles around your scars like it knows where they are. You walk without purpose, hoping movement will feel like progress. People part around you again, subtly but consistently. A young man tips his hat but doesn't make eye contact. A butcher's boy nudges his cart a few inches to the side when you approach. The market hums around you as if nothing has changed. And in a way, nothing has. You are not special. You are not the only one to carry the marks. But you are here now, visible, and that's enough to unsettle. You turn down a narrow lane near the baker's stall, a shortcut home you've used 100 times before. A woman passes, holding a child by the hand. The child is no older than 4, round-cheeked, rosy from the cold. His eyes lock on yours immediately. He stops walking. His mother tugs at his hand, distracted mid-sentence. Then the boy opens his mouth. He doesn't speak. He screams. The town moves on. The bells ring for holy days. Sermons resume their usual rhythms. The baker's son gets married. A chimney collapses near the river. A new child is born and named after his grandfather. Life resumes with its usual shuffling energy, indifferent to the fact that yours nearly didn't. You walk through the streets sometimes, when you have the strength, and realize just how little your absence mattered. No one says it aloud, but it's in their posture. The way they speak past you. The way they smile without including you in it. Another winter comes. Another rumor of illness. This time it starts in the docks, always the docks, and moves inland slowly, following carts and cold drafts and whispering travelers. Someone's cousin develops a rash. Someone else's neighbor coughs blood into a bowl. A woman dies with boils on her scalp, but her children are fine. The priest warns about sin again. The tailor shuts his doors early. Rosemary bundles reappear in windows. You overhear someone say it isn't the same as last time, that this one's milder. You nod quietly from the edge of the crowd, even though no one asked you. You're a living reminder now, a walking warning. People glance at you and remember the thing they'd rather forget. That disease doesn't just kill. Sometimes it leaves you behind, marked, twisted, unwelcome. You don't blame them, not really. You don't enjoy looking in mirrors either. You catch glimpses of yourself in puddles or polished shop windows and instinctively look away. It's not just your face that changed. It's how the world sees you and how you've learned to anticipate their revulsion before it forms. You walk with your eyes down now. You speak more softly. You ask for less. There are others like you. Not many, but you see them. A girl with sunken cheeks and scarring across her brow. A man with clouded eyes and a twisted hand. You nod to each other in passing. A quiet fraternity of the forgotten. No one else seems to notice, or pretends not to. There's something about illness that frightens people even after it's gone. As if your skin might still harbor it. As if your survival suggests that death missed and could still return to finish the job. You hear about more deaths. You stop hearing the names. A woman from your street. A cousin of a neighbor. A boy who worked at the tannery. You used to flinch each time, to wonder if you'd known them. But the list grows too long, and the names too vague, and your capacity to grieve grows thinner. You say the appropriate words. May God take them. May they rest. But you stop picturing the faces. It's easier that way. Sometimes children ask what happened to you. Not cruelly, just plainly. They point at your face and tug at their mother's skirts. The mother hisses at them to hush and drags them away, eyes wide, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. But the question lingers in the air. You never answer, not because you don't have one, but because it wouldn't matter. I lived isn't the kind of story anyone wants to hear. The housemaster lets you stay in the attic, for now. You work where you can. Odd jobs. Errands. The kind of labor that doesn't put you in front of customers. You sweep alleys. You carry buckets. You mend things no one else wants to touch. You keep to yourself, and people find that agreeable. Sometimes they pay you in coins. More often in bread. Or old clothes. Or promises not quite kept. You don't argue. Survival has stripped you of the energy for indignation. You pass by the church sometimes and see names on parish notice boards near the door. Those recently dead. Those newly married. Those welcomed into the world. Your name is not there. It was never written. No one sang for your recovery. No bells rang. No prayers of thanks were offered in your name. You lived quietly, so you were forgotten quietly. In some ways, that feels fair. In others, it's another kind of wound. If you had died, people would have said your name at least once more. They would have whispered it over your body, perhaps with pity, perhaps with relief. Someone would have lit a candle. Someone would have remembered the day they last saw you standing in the street or laughing at something small. They would have said, "Poor thing," or "He didn't deserve that." Briefly, softly, then moved on. But you didn't die. You just returned. And because of that, your memory feels inconvenient. People don't like to remember what almost happened. They prefer neat ends, not open wounds. They talk about recovery as a triumph, not a long, slow unraveling. You lived, but not as a victor. You're not held up as an example. You're not even mentioned. Sometimes you think about disappearing again, not in a dramatic sense, just drifting, moving to another street, a new city, if you could afford the road fare, somewhere no one knows your face, where the stairs are from curiosity rather than memory. But then you remember that you don't have the energy for reinvention. Starting over sounds like something young people do. You feel much older than you are. You clean your reflection less often. The basin grows cloudy. The cloth frays. You stop wiping the glass. You find yourself avoiding it altogether. You can live without seeing. You've had enough of remembering. You try to forget your own face. Everyone else already has. Years later, you find yourself in the back of the church again, as you do most weeks. Not because you expect anything, certainly not comfort, but because it is a place to sit where no one demands much from you. The pews are as hard as ever. The air still smells of candle wax and damp stone. The incense stings your eyes, which is a small mercy. No one questions tears in a chapel. You come in quietly, late, and leave before the benediction, moving through the edges of the congregation like a ghost they've grown used to ignoring. The priest is new. The old one died in the third wave. This one is younger, sharper in voice, firmer in tone. He speaks in the manner of men who still believe their words carry divine weight. You sit listening not so much to his sermon as to the shape of it, the cadences, the rise and fall. But one morning, his words shift. He speaks of judgment, of the wages of sin, of the ways God marks the body to reflect the soul. He tells a story of a man who disobeyed divine order, who lived selfishly, who was brought low by illness. And when he describes the man's face, pocked, twisted, one eye clouded, you feel the weight of 20 heads turning subtly in your direction. He doesn't say your name. He doesn't need to. You keep your eyes on the floor and wait for the moment to pass. It always does. The church is practiced at this sort of thing. Your body has become a tool, a symbol, something to be wielded from the pulpit. Not as a warning against illness. No one speaks of medicine or contagion, but as a lesson about character. You are the evidence, apparently, of what happens when men stray from humility. Your scars speak louder than your silence ever could. Afterward, the children whisper. You hear them in the square, behind carts, tucked into corners where they think you can't hear. That's the one, they say, the one from the story. Sometimes they run when you pass. Sometimes they just stare. One points at your face and makes the sign of the cross. His mother shushes him, but doesn't correct the assumption. You don't stop walking. You don't speak. What would you even say? That you prayed? That you were blameless? That the rot that took half your face spared you out of indifference, not divine intervention? Over time, your story fractures into versions. You overhear pieces of it while collecting bread, fetching water, passing doorways. Some say you were punished for thieving. Others claim you drank too much, cursed too freely, blasphemed at the wrong moment. One version says you tried to run from the sick and were cursed for your cowardice. Another claims you denied a priest entry to your deathbed, and so were left half alive as a warning. Each retelling grows more confident in its moral clarity. The only thing that stays the same is your face. You don't argue. It would require too much energy, too much noise. You've built your life in quiet, in the spaces between other people's comfort. You sweep thresholds before the shops open. You mend torn cloth after others have gone home. You speak only when asked, and rarely then. There's a kind of peace in invisibility, even if it's rooted in revulsion. People don't expect much from you anymore. You are, in some way, a settled fact. The scarred man who lived. The ruined man who didn't die. The warning that walks. In the rare moments someone speaks to you directly, it is usually about weather or errands or trade, small things. You nod. You answer if required. No one asks what you think of the stories. No one asks what it felt like. No one wants the truth, because the truth isn't useful. The truth is that it hurt, that you were afraid, that it wasn't judgment or character or punishment. It was chance. It was breath. It was a cough in a market or a touch on a shoulder or a blanket shared. It was survival, and survival left splinters. The priest tells the story again the next year. Not word for word, but close enough. This time the man is described as once proud, too proud to kneel. You remember kneeling in the dark, forehead pressed to damp wood, shaking with fever. You remember whispering prayers that never formed fully, your lips too cracked, your tongue too swollen. You remember bargaining with a God who never answered. You were on your knees. You remember that. No one else does. The candle offerings increase after that sermon. More mothers bring rosemary sprigs for blessing. Children are made to fast. People pray louder, as if volume wards off illness. The priest seems pleased. The warning is working. You are working. There's an old woman who occasionally brings you a bowl of broth and leaves it by the chapel wall. She doesn't speak. You don't thank her out loud, but you nod once, and she nods back. That is enough. She may remember what it was actually like. You're not sure. She walks slowly and breathes shallowly, as if she's lived too many winters already. You wonder if you'll look like her someday, or if you already do. You dream less and less. Or rather, the dreams become less distinct. Not fire or angels or drowning. Just fragments. Rooms with no doors. Names you don't recognize. Mirrors without reflections. Sometimes you wake with the sense that you are being watched. Other times you forget you were asleep at all. The days blend together. Your body aches in familiar patterns. Your joints stiffen in the cold. Your left eye grows dimmer. But you no longer chart these declines. They are simply part of you now. The children stop whispering after a few years. A new plague comes. Not smallpox, but something else. It claims infants mostly, and then their mothers. People panic again. They fast. They light candles. But no one points at you. Not anymore. Your story is old. Other faces carry new warnings. You pass unnoticed now, even among the frightened. You're no longer frightening. You are just there. One Sunday, you hear a traveler ask the priest if the story about the pocked man is true. The priest nods solemnly and gestures toward the back pew. Your old seat. There was one years ago, he says. A man like that. No one remembers his name. You are not surprised. You do not feel anger. You sit by the fountain in the square that afternoon, your hands resting in your lap, your head tilted slightly to catch the sun. No one speaks to you. No one meets your gaze. A child walks past and does not stare. A woman hums a tune you don't recognize. A cart rattles over loose stones. Life goes on, steadily, indifferently, confidently. Your suffering becomes metaphor. Your name is not mentioned.